Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I'm Luke, one half of Mind Over Mortar. This is our first proper episode, and I just want to be upfront and say that we're still learning as we're going. It's not perfect, there's no polished intros, just real conversations. Me and Matt are building businesses and property, and this episode is built around confidence versus capability. The part nobody really talks about. You could be doing work, making moves, looking fine on the outside, and still feel all over the place on the inside. So we get into business, we get into property, and the things that affect us day to day. Pressure, mindset, and some personal stuff too. And honestly, thank you for taking the time to tune in. I really do hope you enjoy this first episode, and I hope you recognise yourself in part of it as well. All right, let's get into it. So, the moment confidence did not arrive. So, what I'm asking is, what's the best example of you getting results but still not feeling confident? Would that be you close a major deal, but you feel like a fraud? Moments you had explain the strategy to an investor or something like that?
But to be honest, this is a daily occurrence for me, especially at the minute. One specific example I've got with property relation is working with a landlord.
Right. No, go on. I'm interested.
Yeah, I had an opportunity come across where a landlord is trying to upload his entire portfolio, and because it's something new to me and I'm trying to grow in this industry as well, that was intimidating. And then even though you go through the training and the processes and you're doing this daily, because I knew that he was established, that was intimidating. And then suddenly when I'm trying to explain and collaborate with him, it became difficult because I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel like I was capable at that point. It's ironic because you end up doing the training, like literally on the day you'll go through the processes of dealing with investors. You'll be talking to them on the phone, and then suddenly it's like you've got this big opportunity. It comes along and it just absolutely fries my brain. You know? So that's a very recent example. It relates to entire life. If I go back to engineering as well, so I'm an engineer by trade. Even though I've been doing that for around 20 years now, I've built multiple projects, garages, repaired cranes, electronics, programming. Still that people come to me and then you're trying to like justify yourself. Though you know it, it's because my brain goes blank. Maybe it comes down to having too many plates spinning, too many things going on. I'm not sure. It's something I need to try and work towards and work out why this happens as well. That's a couple of examples. Also a musician and DJ as well, so it also relates to that. I get anxiety before performances, and with the property I get anxiety before phone calls, for example, as well, because I don't feel confident. I don't feel like I can deliver, even though you've just done it. And I'm still trying to get to grasps like why that's happening. Basically, it's a daily occurrence. It's a daily struggle for probably a lot of people as well. We put on this front, don't we? Where you have to pretend in life that you've got it all together and you know what's going on and you know what you're doing in order to deliver. And it's important that you deliver as well. Some people are very natural at it. I find they're able to just, they don't flinch, they don't wince. Maybe from the outside, I don't either. Maybe people are sitting here watching this now and they're thinking, okay, those guys look chilled, but inside I'm not. You know, you're anxious. You're thinking, okay, what are these people thinking? So when it comes back to with that landlord, for example, you're on the end of the phone and you're like, so this is what I do. This is what I'm proposing we do going forward. But inside you're tremoring. You know, I don't know if you feel the same way when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that creeps in, isn't it? You know, when you're bringing up someone, you kind of in your head, you sort of like, you know what you want to say. You might have already rang, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6, 10 people, whatever it may be. So when you get to the 10th person, you're pretty fluid in what you're saying. And because it sort of sounds more so like you believe it now, because the way it's coming out and the way it's being presented to them, all of a sudden they go, oh, okay, right, fine, yeah, tell me more. And you're like, It's like, I haven't got past this stage yet. You're, like you're in your mind, you're thinking you're the first person that's actually let me speak past this. So, yeah, I get it. It's difficult because like you have this like momentum sort of you apply to your life, and apply to the things that you're doing, and then when something starts to materialise out of it, you're like, oh, right, okay, fine, and what do I do next? And it's just like life is just constantly problems. Though it doesn't matter. Like if you're people think if you're a business owner, There's no, you know, you're like, oh yeah, you're making money, you're sweet, you know what I mean? Yeah, no problems. You know, no, that's not the case at all.
That is not the case.
It's not the case at all. It's just the problems are different, and if anything, the problems are more frequent as well. But you just better understand them, and you're able to, like, you know, learn and then see the problems ahead and try and react before, be more proactive instead of reactive. And it's definitely something that I suffered with as well. You know, when you get momentum, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I lose confidence in what I'm doing now. So much. I mean, I know what I'm doing, and I know how well I can do it. I know what I can deliver, you know, and the proof's in the pudding. I'm doing it. But I've got, for example, like some investors that I'm working with at the moment, and I worked hard to get those investors, and then, you know, like they're like, okay, great, do it. You know, pumped. They're psyched. They're like, yeah, let's do it. Like, yeah, let's do it. What are we doing again?
That's it. I've heard a phrase that when you're either over excited or you're on the slump, you're depressed, understimulated, so that's the word. Overstimulated, understimulated, then you can't focus. And that kind of links in with what you're saying, where you get all excited, you get pumped, but you don't know what you're pumped about. Yeah. So and then you come out of it, and then you're on a high, and then you start to slump because you suddenly get the reality of, okay, we're going back into real life now. We've got to actually deal with this problem. Capable? Can I do that? Can I retain the information? Which is a problem that I deal with. I don't know about you. Like, how do you deal with the retaining the information? Because for me, like, I struggle sometimes. I have to write things down. I have to record voice notes to make sure that I do still have that information there. So me, that creates this lack of confidence because I'm constantly thinking, am I going to remember this information? It's an interesting point you bring up. So for you, how does that apply to you? Do you have that problem?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it really comes down to how interested I am in something, and how my attention will automatically sort of divert itself and focus itself on something where I can actually retain information. Now, when I say retain information, I use that term very loosely, because actually retaining the full information is very difficult for me. And I don't know what it's like for other people that don't suffer with like ADHD. We do. I don't know whether they're able to actually, I'd love to know what it's like, you know, are they able to read something like, you know, a long document or whatever, and actually be able to verbatim sort of like, you know, be recalling paragraphs and, you know, retaining like the core, not just the core concept of what they've just read, but the full understanding of it as well. Because I can't do that. So I can read stuff that I'm interested in, I can get involved in things that I'm interested in, and I can retain the core information, but I can't retain specifics necessarily of it. Listen to like Jim Rohn and stuff like that, and you just like you listen to him, you're like you're nodding along, you're like yeah, it makes sense, you know, it's really good. And then, you know, when you want to tell someone else about it, like, I can't remember what he said. I know what he said, and I know how it made me felt, but I don't know how to tell you that. So I'm like, here you go, listen. Me, like, retaining the information is also very difficult, but I do try techniques that I will use like a story mode. So if it's things that I really must retain and I think is really important, I'll create a narrative and a story around it. So I think this is a very well documented sort of, you know, remembering things as well. I'm not the first person to discover this. I learnt this from someone. Tell a story where you start from point A and you go to point B, and along the way you'll identify things in your story, like it could be, you know, a car, or it could be this tree, or you're walking down the road, or you're walking from point A to B, or you're driving down and you see this sign on the road and it's, you know, London, but underneath that there's a bit of information you want to retain. It's more easy for your brain to remember that and the picture of those things that you're looking at than it is for me to just hope, and, you know, it's just going to be there, the information. So in school I was special class. I was in foundation for everything.
Tell me about that.
I was in foundation for everything. Maths, English, science, everything. I was in like the lower classes, and obviously where I had you know, a lot of things, you know, going on with myself when I've always have, but when I was younger, the understanding of it wasn't there as well. So in Tourette's and having ADHD and having OCD and everything else that goes along with it, it made me very weird. Do you know what I mean? Like in school, what that also did is it sort of created this sort of mindset around the teachers that I was too much trouble for them to really want to deal with.
You don't fit in with the system, do you?
No, God no, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I'm a square trying to go in a round hole. Do you know what I mean? It's it just doesn't gel. And because I don't say that any of the teachers that taught me at school, you know, some of them were fantastic, you know, and they really did give me the time. But for the most part, it was, if I ever reached out, they were very cold. A lot of them were very cold to me because
that's interesting.
They realised that the level of input from them required to teach me and to educate me was far greater than what they were being paid to do. And it's, you know, disappointing. And what that meant is that I sort of fell behind quite a lot at school. Sent out of class. I can't even begin to tell you how many hours, days I probably spent in hours standing outside a classroom because I was sent out because of a tick that I'd something or whatever, you know. So
how can I just jump in there? How were your ticks at the time? Because being a child, that must be horrendous.
Yeah, it was it was pretty aggressive. There's different types of Tourette's. You've got motor tics, you've got vocal tics. There are different scales in Tourette's as well, as far as like the severity. So medical industry or the NHS, whatever, they will subcategorize your Tourette syndrome. So if you don't have any vocals and it's just tics, they might not even classify you with Tourette's. A certain type of Tourette's called, that is the vocal, but it's the swearing. It's really, yeah, and I've got that. So
wow. That must be rough.
It was very difficult, and albeit that now I'm able to control and suppress, not control, sorry, you can never control it, but I'm able to suppress my tics. Back when I was in secondary school and I was like, 12 years old, 13, I hadn't learnt those techniques by then. I didn't have the capacity as a teenager to learn those techniques either. There was a hell of a lot of other things going on in my body at that time. Do you know what I mean? Trying to control your Tourette's was never on the forefront. So it meant that the vocal tics were quite outrageous sometimes.
I can imagine.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. I mean, there's multiple occasions where a teacher would walk into a room, and it only seemed, there was one teacher in particular. I won't say who it was, but like there was one teacher in particular. Who gave me a particularly hard time. He just didn't actually believe it was a real thing, I don't think. So much so that his office, once after an outburst that I'd had in classroom, he asked me to come to his office in my lunch break. I went and sat in his office and he sort of leant over the table and he went, "I can tell." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I can tell when it's your Tourette's and when it's not." I was like, "Me?" He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, you're in the wrong job then, mate." I said, "Because, if you can tell the difference between my Tourette's and not my Tourette's," I said, "then you've got a gift and you need to go and share that because, awareness, you need to give other people it needs to be done." And that's the thing, people, they just assumed, they assumed that I was just naughty. Yeah. They assumed I was doing it on purpose. And the tics often are environment based as well. So I will have a tic that's not a cognitive thought in my brain that's natural, if that makes sense, yeah? If there's some context going on around me, if we're doing something or someone's talking about something, what happens is, and I think I said this to you the other day, yesterday, and I think it's a really good point, and everyone, I don't care who you are, okay? I don't care who you are, whether you consider yourself normal or whether you have some disability or something that affects you. Doesn't matter. We're all humans at the end of the day, right? We all have a monkey brain. There is, in everyone's brain, there is that monkey part of your brain, all right? There is that old school sort of, banging on a tree sort of monkey brain. And you might see someone who has something wrong with them, or one might have said something that upsets you. Brain, somewhere in it, will have a thought, and that thought will be something quite maybe outrageous. It could be quite offensive. Brain thinks it. You don't say it because it's wrong to say. You can't, if you blurted it out, it'd be the worst thing that you could possibly say in that moment. Well, that's Tourette's. So that part of my brain connects to my Tourette's, and that's what happens. I always find myself pressing it, and when it's really bad, it's pushing. It's like someone fighting, punching and kicking to get out. And I'm just holding it in because I know that if I say that, it's just going to cause problems. But sometimes I just can't. Sometimes I genuinely can't, and it doesn't matter how much I try, out it comes.
Right, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Literally said to you earlier, you were ticking, and I
Mm.
said to you, how does that feel? And you said, well, I don't know, I'm doing it.
No, I didn't.
Which absolutely baffles me.
Yeah, I didn't know.
So it absolutely baffles me that you've kind of got to that point as well where you feel it, because we discussed as well when you're in situations where you have to try and suppress it, you have to be in control as much as you can be. It doesn't happen so often. So then I suppose the problem is people then think, like you said about the teacher, they probably think, well, he's just doing that. He's just choosing to do that. But I've watched you do it, and obviously as we've got to know each other, you've then ticked more. I'm like, that must be horrible to experience, and then you're just like, no, I don't know, and do it, and that just baffles me now that you're adapted to that. So
I mean, it would be a real elaborate ruse if
it would, wouldn't it?
If that wasn't the case.
Thing. And it's crazy. But going back to the confidence, which is obviously the subject that we tried to talk about, how does that affect you, knowing that you've got that condition, for example? Now, this could be a condition, so people with Tourette's like yourself, which is that's a hefty condition to have to deal with, or you've got ADHD, like we both got as well, with dyslexia. This goes on, doesn't it? I mean, how does that affect you in your confidence when you're dealing with investors, for example, when you're trying to do business and get things done?
It's a good question. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever thought about that.
Really? That's interesting. Why do you, or do you think it's because it's you deal with it, don't you?
Much of disbelief this might be to hear, I don't think I'm any different to anyone else. No, I'm different. I don't think that I'm any different.
But I respect that massively. I respect that massively, because it comes down to mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that comes down to, in some ways, I suppose, what we all kind of aspire to be. Now we're all growing, we're all working, we're all to get towards a goal. You've had to deal with this your whole life, haven't you? So you've had to put in a lot of effort to suppress it. Sorry, not suppress it, to understand it, this is the wrong word, and utilise it, the tools that you've got. So the way I see it is like we're given tools. I don't know if you agree with this, but given a set of tools, your brain. For me, I've spent a long time hungry because I haven't been able to understand how to use those tools correctly, and I'm still trying to work towards it. So for you at an early age, I suppose you had that set of tools that you had to deal with, or you had to utilise in the best way you could, and you've had to put a lot of effort into doing that.
Yes. Fortunately, if you're hoping that I'm going to be able to sort of my tool bag and say to you, well, I've got this wrench and I've got this there, that's not the case. My tool bag is like Houdini's bag, a whole arm in there, and you might not find something. It's not that they don't exist and they're not there. It's just I don't know how to describe them. I couldn't sit here and tell you how I suppress or how I control or how I manage this. It's a learned behaviour. It was a forced learned behaviour. I think it came from adversity. A part of my mind had to be strengthened in one area and rewritten in another in order for me to be able to have some control over this or some suppression over this. When it's been so long now, I think when I was younger, I think there probably was, when I was learning how to control and how to suppress my tics, I think there was definitely more of a cognitive sort of like response to it. I was thinking about actually doing it, whereas now it happens sort of in the background. My body still does it. It happens in the background, but it's almost like here comes the analogies. It's almost like
you are the king for this, isn't it? I love it. Brilliant.
It's almost like one person having their phone on lock screen and one person having their phone on record the whole time. Yeah. Still two phones, still doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing, whether one's recording and one's locked. Yeah. One battery is going to drain quicker than the other. So my brain and my body is like the one that's constantly recording. I can give you a whole day's worth of charge, yeah, right? Probably, or most of it, at least anyway. I might be able to do from when you go to work to when you get home, yeah. Whereas the other phone will be able to do all day and probably into next day as well, yeah. By the time I get home, my battery's gone, it's dead, it's out. So I then my ability to suppress becomes very difficult, if not impossible. I'm at home and I'm in my comfortable environment with my wife and my kids and that, I don't suppress it. I let it come out because you have to. And this is the other thing that people don't understand as well. I think that these things, these thoughts, these actions, you know, like my motor tics or my vocal tics. You'll notice also when we talk about it more, it will happen more, because it's like my brain starts going, oh, he's talking about it. You'll find that a lot of people don't understand, think that, you know, it just happens. You know, these things just happen. You know, and it comes out if it comes out, it comes out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. No, it has to come out. It's almost like there's a quota every day of tics that have to be expressed, whichever type they are. If you don't hit that quota, it doubles down. Then it gets worse and symptoms start to really worsen. Your mental health starts to worsen as well. I always explain it like a champagne bottle. So got page wrapper on the outside of the champagne bottle, yeah, and you shake that. Very difficult for that cork to pop off. A cork's never held on by a cage. So what I'm doing is I'm building up pressure throughout the whole day, like the shaking the bottle. Pressure's building and building and building and building. And when I get home, like the pop, you know, the cork will pop, and then all my tics can come out. It's almost like I'm storing them.
Yeah.
I'm putting them into little boxes for the day, and then when I get home, they all just sort of like come out.
Yeah. That's interesting you say about that, because I don't have Tourette's. Right, I don't know what that feels like. I don't understand that, but I understand the champagne feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an ADHD thing as well. Having the two combined in your situation probably antagonises that.
Yeah, it sucks.
But for me, run this up and down cycle, running at full pace, flat out, excitement, everything's great, and then come crashing down again. What also happens over time is I get antagonised by little things that are going, and they build up and build up and build up and build up. And some people are very good at pressing them and just kind of getting on with the day. Fine for like, I used to have, my wife and I used to have this cycle as well, and it was a lot more apparent when I was younger, and then more flat out, more energized. Probably like a 3 or 4 weekly thing, like probably even more than that maybe, and I'd snap. That was the champagne bottle cork going off, and I would snap.
Perfect
and I would go, everything that I was thinking would just come pouring out. And it would be targeted at someone because they'd done something really. It wasn't even like, it wouldn't even matter, but that was the trigger. That would then fire all of this anger and frustration at that person. It was justified. Most of the time, it probably wasn't. And then after, I'd feel really guilty, and I'd feel really unconfident. Going back to the confidence, and because I would then feel like I was worried it was going to happen again. I'd feel guilty that I'd upset the people as well, which would then make me feel unconfident again as well, which is ironic because I'm quite a confident person. Then I'm quite happy to get up on stage and play music, and I'm quite happy to sit in front of a camera and talk about this with people, because I think that comes from a place where I want to do things and I want to help. But then underneath, I'm quite unconfident because I'm constantly paranoid about what people are thinking. Now, I do wonder. Does that feeling sort of resonate with you and what you're saying?
It does. It's very interesting that you say that, because I think these conversations are good, because you could say something like makes my mind think a different way as well. What you said about how it would sort of like build up, and then you would eventually sort of, you know, maybe weeks down the line, you would take it out on someone else. I can resonate with that. I would never take it out on someone else. I would take it out on myself.
Okay, yeah.
So I was always at in the crosshairs when it came to that happening to me. And the second point that you made as well about peer confident. You play at weddings, you go up on stage, you know, sitting here in a room, we're recording ourselves, and people are going to look and listen to this. You know, that's the thing. It's an unknown disguise. I think it's a safety mechanism. It's a protection mechanism that our bodies and our brains sort of implement when we have these issues in our life, because we have to still be able to present to the world. We have to be members of society. We have to move through the crowds like on a daily basis. You can't just dwell on what you're doing and how you're feeling. You put on the proverbial mask. And for most people, I find, at least anyway, when you sit down with someone and you really start talking to them, you really start to get to know them and understand them and ask them elaborated questions about their mental health and about who they are. Not probing and not like trying to unearth anything, but you really do is you unknowingly allow them to sort of take their disguise off. You see who they really are. And so many people wear that mask. So every day, people put their mask on, they go out to work, they do their thing. And do you know what? Some people, even myself, I'm guilty of it. Guilty of doing it, definitely. Mask is more of a mask and more of a full of armour Yeah, because you can kind of see me coming. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I mean, why do you say that? Because to me,
I feel like Tony Stark sometimes. I do. I really do.
I mean, to me, I sort of feel people's energy. I know that might sound ridiculous, but
No?
I feel people's energy, and that kind of links in with the mask, I think, actually. People put up a front and they're very good at doing it. And in some ways, they're probably really good at business because they're very good at just getting in the character like that. I've struggled at that. You put on this confidence in some ways, that mask, have that suit. At the same time, struggle to do it. So in
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's the societal pressure that we're all under.
I suppose, yeah.
You know, we're all under societal pressure because if you don't integrate, you get axed out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, people get scared of lack of integration into society, that public perception. Right?
Definitely.
They are scared of it. And so that's where the mask comes from.
Yeah.
A tool. And back to what you were saying about tools. People use that as a tool to be able to get through the days. You know, some people have to wear masks than others. You know, I say mine's a full suit. But, you know, I know, I've known friends that have presented themselves as successful, have that wit, they're the winner. Going out, they're getting life, you know, they're smashing it. And you see what they're doing, and sometimes it makes you feel inferior. You're like, you know.
It makes you feel very unconfident.
It does. It makes you feel unconfident in your own self. And that's what it distracts from your own progress when you start comparing yourself to others and what they're doing. The person that I've known before that does this, he's very confident and he goes out and he gets life every day, and he's that go getter. You know, burn catches the worm, and he presents really well. You know, the things that he does, and you know, but then I know other people that are close to him and they tell me things that are contrary to what I'm seeing. You'll never get that out of that person. You'll never get them to expose themselves or take that mask off, because it's almost like they've glued it on. As if they feel if they take it off, they're just going to crumble.
Yeah. I'm intrigued, actually, because I've always been quite competitive. Until we should get it on right now. Until recently. I've lost my confidence recently because I've started to understand where a lot of my competitiveness and anger has come from, and it links in with what you're saying, where it was kind of like a front and a mask. So I'd be competitive because I've always wanted to push and be the best I can be, but I've never understood how to do it. So in order to kind of make up for the lack of confidence, when I was around people who were portraying this successful image, like you're saying, be really competitive. It would be like, I'm going to win. And that then links in with what I said earlier about my cycle of anger, of going up and down and then snapping, because my competitiveness would then add to it. So my snapping, and as I call it with my wife, my snapping cycle has got less because I feel like I'm not as competitive now, because I'm now starting to understand the process a bit more of why and what's going on. I've still got a long way to go. My front has come down a lot as I've got older, and I've realised that it's actually been a hindrance when it comes to business and learning, for example. The problem is when you're in a society that obviously you have to win and you have to compete and you have to put on that mask, it becomes difficult. And then that affects my confidence even more, because I'm suddenly like, I wish I was still competitive and kind of fooded, I suppose is the word. Especially when I was a teenager, because I'd this false persona that you were doing well and you were like fighting and you were winning, but I probably wasn't. Maybe I was. Maybe from the outside to people looking in, I was. I don't know. As I strip that back, I've then become quite unconfident, because I'm suddenly like, hang on, was I just deluded the whole time? It starts to creep in, and then I start to doubt myself that I'm not doing as well as I was, or I'm not doing as well as the other people who have still got that trail of themselves. In reality, they might not actually be doing that well. They're just very good at portraying it.
It's an interesting thought. I've never really been that competitive.
Really?
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a mean competitive streak in me.
I mean, we banter and whatnot, don't we? And so that surprises me that you say that.
I have a mean competitive streak in me, don't get me wrong. But I learned to let that go a long time ago.
Right.
So when I was in school, if I'm honest with you, I just sort of reverting back to there, because I noticed that the more competitive I was, the more and cheese those people sort of become, because and I already had enough fucking on. I didn't need anyone else, you know what I mean, to dislike me or anything. So I just literally just stopped myself from being competitive in sports and other things like that. What I find though, that like when you're not a competitive person, you can look outsider looking in from the outside in, and you can look at these people who are competitive. And what I've seen in the past with competitive people is that, I mean, it's a really good trait to have because it builds confidence. However, it's also very bad because if you have someone who's competitive, quite often you'll find that they are successful or they're very good at whatever it is that they're competitive at. As soon as you stick those people in an environment, they're surrounded by other people that are just as good, if not better. The competitiveness inside them starts to fade. They start to feel inferior. They start to feel smaller. They're not the centre of attention. They're not the one that everyone's talking about. They're not the one crossing the line first every time. Now they've actually got to fight for something like what I signed up for.
You are hitting me hard right now. You just summarised my teenage years, basically.
but yeah. The only reason I have that perspective is because, again, I wasn't allowed to be competitive, so I had to look at competitive people instead. I had to study these people, and I got the chance to study these people, and that's the conclusion that I met.
When you were a child, though, did you aspire to be like that? Or did you actually think, okay, maybe I shouldn't be like that? What was your image of that at the time?
When I was a child, I think, you know, if you're going into something early on when you're a kid by your parents, like they're like, oh, I'm going to send my kid to karate class, you know, who's going to be, you know, the next Bruce Lee or whatever, right? Unless that happens where you're like forced into something as a child, then you tend to sort of like develop your competitive side when you're in like secondary school. Early on in secondary school, or like the latter part of primary school, when, you know, you're doing sports and things like that in school. So I think that my competitive side sort of started around, or tried to start at least anyway, around sort of secondary school. I was quite fast, like when like running and things like that. So I could win races, you know, I could run for long distances as well. I was quite athletic. I've always been quite athletic. I've always been able to sort of turn my hand to any sport, and it doesn't take me too long to sort of get, you know, okay at it, or enough that I can go and play it and enjoy it. So yeah, it was around the sort of secondary school time when we were like, you know, you're doing your sports days and you're doing PE like times a week, or a double block lesson of PE on a Wednesday, and then you've got it on Friday morning and Monday afternoon, and so you're always doing stuff. That's where my competitive sort of like side came from. And I suppose after that, I don't really think I've ever really been competitive at anything after. No, maybe golf. Hang on, right. Right. Well,
no, you are an avid golfer, aren't you?
Right. So. Okay. So yeah, maybe golf. Yeah. And I think with the golf, yeah, it's very a lot. You know, people love it, people hate it. It's really hard to become good at golf. It really is. Yeah. It takes so much to do it. So I just saw it as a challenge. I was like, I've got to get good at this. I want to get good at this. So I saw it as a challenge, and I became really, really, really competitive. The difference is only competing with myself. I wasn't competing with anyone else.
Nah, that's a fundamental point right there, isn't it? I spend a lot of time beating myself up because I'm not good enough, and I know where that stems from. Maybe that's ADHD, maybe that's something else, I don't know. But for me, that's always been the driving aspect. It's like, you need to be better. But I actually would look at other people and I would be like, I need to be better because I'm not where they are. It wasn't necessarily me wanting to be, and to be fair, I say this still is the case. I mean, I literally said to you earlier, I'm trying to understand myself and grow so I can be more successful in life, I suppose. The reality is, I've got a wife, I've got my little boy, and I've got my house that I've renovated, and I'm doing all right, but I still don't feel good enough. So constantly feel like I'm looking for more, even though I probably don't need to, because, and I don't know if that relates to competitiveness or whether that's a confidence, because I don't feel like I've achieved enough. I'm not sure, but you also said a point about the always wanting the new challenge as well. Now this to me sort of links in with this as well, because I always thrive on the new part of learning something. So I've then established it. So for example, like kite surfing, I craved learning to kite surf. I'd been putting it off because I was renovating the house. And then when I finally got to it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Yep, I'm going to go and kite surf, and always been into like extreme sports, motocross, mountain biking, windsurfing, kite surfing, blah blah blah. But you go out and you learn to do it, able to do it, you buy all the gear, and then you can do it. And suddenly I run out of steam because it doesn't appeal to me as much. But you said you love golf and you're competitive in that. I mean, you've been doing golf a long time. And my point being is, has that stamina run out because you've learned you're good at it?
Very interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if we're going back to business, for example, this is always one thing that I'm scared of. Like, okay, so you start your business, start the new thing, you're entrepreneur, and suddenly you have to keep maintaining it. Having that well, I suppose there's a challenge in itself of just keeping the business going, isn't there? Anyway, go back to your golf. So
I'll circle back to the golf in a second, actually, because what you just said there is also quite interesting and important. Whole thought process is what I think just plagues me and everyone. So I always, here comes the analogies. I always think of it like this, right? So if you work for a company and you work in a 9-to-5 job, right? Then you get on the train, you sit down on the train, all right, and you're being effectively carried on that train. Right? You decide to become a business owner or an entrepreneur. Don't step into carriages. You're now driving the train.
That's good, yeah.
And the thing is with being a successful business owner, and that every single one of us, every single one in history, in existence, to give you some perspective, stepped into that cab to drive that train for the first time. There and gone, what do I do? There's all these buttons and all these levers for me to push. Let's say it's a steam train, right? I've got coal to shovel. I've worked out what that one is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's the exciting one.
That's the exciting one.
There's the thing, isn't it? When it's exciting, it's easy to keep going.
It is, yeah, absolutely. But everyone who becomes a business owner and will go through that thing, and there might be people out there that go, well, I work in a job, and I didn't know what I was doing when I got into the job. Yeah, fine, but you're in a carriage filled with other people. Those other people are the people you work with. Go and ask them for help. You can all help you because you're now in this carriage. This is the business that you now work for. Yeah, got to be successful. It's still got to stay on the tracks. When you're driving the train, you've got to shovel the coal. You've got to press the buttons. You've got to pull the levers. Don't know which one's what because nothing's labelled in there, and it never is when you start out. Basically, just going, what does this one do? And you're sort of testing the waters. It might take you a couple of months, a couple of years, whatever it may be, right? Actually get the train to start moving. But once it does, you control the speed. You know what everything does now. You know where you're going. That's laser focus, that direction, because you're on a track. You can only go in one direction and it's forwards.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Being at the start of the track, trying to learn all those buttons and what to press and whatnot. It's a rattling experience. Well, and when you're then to deal with the inner demons at the same time as well, it makes it 10 times worse. No one's normal. I don't think anyone's normal. I don't think there's any such thing. Like I say, we've all got our tools, but learning to apply those tools whilst you're then pressing random buttons and seeing what it does, I mean, that's a rattling experience. That's tough.
It is, yeah. It's definitely tough,
and it becomes exhausting.
It does become exhausting, definitely. And like, going back to that analogy quickly, we're talking about the horn, for example, yeah. So like the train horn actually has quite an important part in driving the train, believe it or not, because again, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you've, you could be, kids know, you would know. If you saw that chain dangling or that rope dangling, you know what that thing does, right? You pull it, what does it do? It sounds off. But that's what, when you become a business owner and entrepreneur, the first thing that you do is you pull that. But that's you telling people what you're doing. You're explaining now, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. It's social media, it's this. And most of us have to be ringing that bloody that whistle for a long time before we actually make any traction. It's important to do it as well. You know what?
One thing I've really struggled with is pulling that horn. It's taken me. I'm 33, right? It's taken me a long time to get the confidence in myself and not worrying about the judgment of everyone around me. Go in there and pull that horn. I'd say it's only recently that I've just gone, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I'm going to pull the horn. Yeah. I think that horn analogy is going to pop up all over the place now.
Yeah, it's a whistle, not a horn.
So here we are. But when you actually do pull the horn,
it's a whistle.
The whistle then. You said the horn.
I did, didn't I? Yeah. I'm thinking of like a locomotive steam train now.
Well, if you pull the horn, it shouts loud. So there you go. If you're, but when you sound the whistle, it does become infinitely easier because suddenly people are like, okay, so that's what he's doing. You will get people saying, "Why are you doing that?" No, I wouldn't do it like that. That's ridiculous. I'm still dealing with that battle of palming off the people that are trying to pull me down, and then listen to the people that are trying to pull me up. And that's something that I've always struggled with as well. I've always been a very independent person, doing everything on my own. So I've renovated my own properties. I've been doing it for 6 years. On my own home, for example, I'm still going myself out doing it in the process for another day. Yeah. They're subjects for another day. But I always struggled trusting other people. Even in reality, knew that they're better. I struggled releasing that control. What it did is it held me back, I believe, because joining the academy, for example, where you're surrounded by people that are driven and they're thinking similar. Well, you like to think they're thinking similar. Hopefully they are. You're working with these investors as well, and even just national investors, anyone. You know that they've got the same motive as you. They're trying to achieve the same goal. I haven't been around that before till I started working on property, working on my music, and going at it properly. No, maybe it's my fault for not putting myself in the right place. I don't know. But I always had an issue with the trust. Even just come with just getting a plasterer in, for example. So I'll be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to learn to plaster. That'll make me better. But what did it do? It took like 4 times as long.
I say don't do that.
And then I just burn myself out. Well, I can plaster. It's it's fine. But it just takes me like 4 times longer than an actual plasterer, because they're doing it day in, day out, aren't they?
So what are you gaining from that though?
Well, for me, it was the personal satisfaction. It was the personal competitiveness. And I'd be like, I can plaster now. Can you? What clout does that have? None, does it?
I mean,
but
maybe on a building site.
To be fair, it was the personal achievement, because obviously you'd walk around and you go, oh yeah, I did that. It was all right. It's a very hollow victory. I've been speaking to a lot of people recently who they believe have got ADHD as well. And there's a guy I was talking to last week, actually, and he said about building his house. He built his house. And that's amazing. I respect that, because I've been renovating my property. I built my garage, did the bathroom. It was a full gut job. Done it all myself. Took me 6 years, still going. Built his entire house, and he said to me, you should now sit there and enjoy it. Don't like the next project. And he can't sit there and he can't relax and he can't enjoy it. And he's like, yeah, and I just did myself in. And now I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to do the next challenge. It's exhausting, because you should be sitting there in the rewards of the fruits of your labour. When it comes to the plastering, for example, I'm like, okay, yeah, well, I saved some money. It took me a week to learn how to do it, and then far too long to do it. Although for about 10 seconds afterwards, I'm like, yeah, that was great. I'm then like, what did I do that for? The cycle continues.
I get it.
I kind of went a bit off subject.
No, it's good, because I did the same thing in my house. Me and my wife, we didn't live in our house for 6 months.
Okay.
We lived at my mother and father-in-law's for 6 months, because we were renovating it. We gutted it. We stripped it. Yeah. The whole house was like literally like back to brick. Yeah. Yeah. And I did do quite a bit, myself. I got involved and all that, I had trades in as well helping. But I know now that I didn't know back then that segues, or sorry, to relate this into what you were saying, that I thought I was saving money by doing things myself, knock the wardrobes out, and I'll build the partition walls, and I'll put like the C-stud up and put the soundproof and plasterboard on. I'll do the rock wall in between, I'll do this, I'll do that, and I had good builders who were willing to work with me. Do you know what I mean? But what I was doing is I thought I was saving money, but I was spending time. Yeah. And when you become an entrepreneur and you own your own business, realise that time is actually a currency. I now live by 3 currencies. I have time, I have knowledge, and I have money. I can't remember where I read this, but I read it quite recently, and like the last sort of like year or so, and it really resonated with me. Now, I can obtain any one of those things by applying the other 2. I want more time, then I need more money and knowledge. I want more money, I need more time and knowledge. So
no, I just start losing me as well.
Similarly, if I want more money, I want time and knowledge, and if I want more knowledge, I need more money and I need more time. it's interesting because like most entrepreneurs that I know that I speak with and I've sort of socialised with and that, time is also a currency for them as well. The only thing in your life like that, a commodity that you can willingly spend, frivolously spend if you want to, you can never earn any more of it. It's a one transaction side, you know, you can only spend it, you can't earn any more of it. And when we had our first child, it was soon after that, so a few years ago now, I realised, understood and appreciated and respected the value of time. As you know, as a dad, kids like grow up fast. Right? It's your firstborn. Don't you see these people? They're like, oh yeah, your kids grow up really quick. You know, savor the moments and that. And you're like, he hasn't changed for 6 months. Can't be going that quick. You know.
Yeah.
But then you don't realise it's happening.
It is.
You know, it goes so quickly. Like my son, he's 4 years old now. He'll be 5 this year, soon as well. I'm like, where the hell did that go?
I wake up every day and he's grown like an extra 6 inches. I'm like, how did you get that big?
Jesus,
it's ridiculous.
6 inches a day, that's a lot. Hang on a minute.
That's
He's
how
trying
I
to
see
calculate how close to the moon he would be.
Imagine though, God, then we would be rich, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we would be, yeah.
But that's how I see it. That's
Yeah.
like you're like, hang on. But obviously when you're out crafting and trying to establish and or you're working to provide, is kind of how it is perceived. That's how I see it. Because like yesterday, I was working my family's commercial property and the electrical installation work, and then you come across problems, and then suddenly I'm not home again. You spend, and this is what we do. This is what driven people do, don't they? They want to provide. This applies to anyone who's listening right now. You then lose that time with your family. So like this morning, I turned up a little bit late, didn't I? Because I said to you, I was like, I didn't see my little boy last night, and I didn't see him the night before because I was out doing other work to build, and I spent, like 20 minutes with him this morning, and then it caused loads of grief because I hit all the traffic and blah, blah, blah. So it's got a constant consequence, hasn't it? But in your mind, you think at the time you want to provide and you want to do the best and you want to build your business and you want to keep pushing, but in reality, life goes by and you miss these opportunities, don't you? Like watching your children grow up. That goes on to another subject that we'll talk about in a future episode about how it affects your family.
All right. So that was episode 1. If any part of that made you think, yeah, you know what, that is me, then that's exactly why we're doing it. We're going to be dropping episodes weekly and we'll keep getting better as we go, hopefully. But the whole point of this is to keep it real and talk about what it actually takes to build. If you want to stay in the loop, please follow us on Instagram at Mind Over Mortar, where you'll see updates and clips about our next episodes. Thank you again for listening. See you soon.